and foremost, let me say that we went to court because they believe we had wrongly terminated the agreement. And therefore, if the wrong termination leads to a cost to Ghana, the first question we should ask is that who terminated the agreement and who defended the termination? That is what we should be concerned ourselves with. This thing about the one who signed the agreement being culpable is just a red herring.
So, to you, what you're hearing from the Attorney General is not the immediate matter that we should be concerned with. Who terminated the agreement and on what basis they did that? And what was our defense at the tribunal?
Yes.
But are you, because one of the things I'm guessing you are also paying attention to is what the Attorney General has been saying. And it seems to be more concentrated. And he has even talked about CID invitation of you for an investigation, among others.
No, that's fine. He has the right as Attorney General to call for any investigation he wants to call for. But the fact of the case still stands that we were taken to court for illegal or wrongful termination. Who did the termination? And who defended that wrongful termination?
So you expected, because you are also a member of parliament, member of the Mines and Energy Committee. So I guess even you at that level have some questions to ask as to how all this happened. As a member of that committee, before we even move on to your role and the response you're giving now, what are the key issues you expect the Attorney General to be addressing on this matter?
I will expect that the Attorney General should, first of all, decide whether the process of contracting went through the lay-down process. That is one. If it went through the lay-down process, then the other issues become relevant. Why did we terminate? And in taking the decision to terminate, did we look at the contents of the agreement? If we did, why did we land up being in the wrong before the panel, International Panel on Arbitration? These are the questions I would want to know.
And you're not getting those explanations from everything he's saying?
No, well, so far we've not had the opportunity, to be fair. We've not had the opportunity to speak to the Attorney General or whoever took that decision. We've not had the opportunity.
But is this because now he is basically diverting attention to you? But I'm guessing this is a matter that will interest anybody on that committee.
Well, I don't speak for the committee, so I can only speak for myself.
But then your response is, because I was also going to come and read to you what the successor at the Ministry of Energy says. In fact, this is what the former Minister of Energy, Mr. Ejako, inherited that ministry, which includes the petroleum sector and also the power sector, met together once again. What he says? He says, when a cabinet decides on a matter, how does it become the personal decision of the individual who has to do the representation of cabinet? That's a quote from him. The quote continues. To think like that means you are not even fit to participate in governance. A cabinet takes a decision based on a report produced by a technical committee, and the sector minister is asked to go and implement the report. Then you say that is the sector minister's personal liability. When I was in office, some people tried to get me to vary the report as approved by cabinet, and my position was clear that if you are a sector minister and cabinet approves, it does not lie within your remit to alter the decision by cabinet. So it amazes me that some people can stick their mouth and say that because I was minister, I should be personally charged with responsibility of that liability. It is ludic. We have paid almost over 1 billion for excess capacity. The review committee estimated that the contract as they were, if they are allowed to stand, the country will be paying at the end of the 13th year 7.2 billion in excess of capacity charges. So he is explaining the reason. So the costs go on and on. So the costs go on and on. Honorable, I'm hoping you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. So he's saying, and I think just let me read this last one.
All right, please. Oh, yeah.
Just let me read this last one. It says, now if the country is going to be saddled with $7.2 billion for excess capacity, we need to rethink. In the PPA review, what he said was that if we could get the termination and management of all the excess capacity, the liability that will be faced with is about 600 million out of pocket.
This excess capacity argument has been overflowed, and terribly so. The Minister of Finance came to Parliament last week to state that Ghana had paid slightly over $900 million over 4 years for excess capacity. And I totally dispute their definition of excess capacity. But let's put that aside for the time being. If you divide that amount over the 4-year period, it means we are averaging $234 million a year. The Committee of Mines and Energy met ECG. And ECG is the custodian of all the IPPs. Okay. And ECG said the nation needs a minimum 18% reserve requirement. And they calculated and they gave us this figure. The minimum 18% reserve requirement is about $200 million a year. It's about 197 point something. So that's about $200 million a year. So if you take the 200 million from the 234, has all the noise been about $34 million? And that is why I say this excess capacity thing has been overflowed. Let's also be conscious of one thing. The government in 2015 had decided as a policy direction that all the 5 units of Valco are going to work. As we speak, 3 port lines are lying idle. The 3 port lines of Valco consume 225 megawatts. If Valco was working fully, we will not have any power to even probably have even eaten into the reserve capacity. And so the inability of government, which is the sole owner of Valco, to bring Valco on stream, fully on stream, should not become my burden. Again, we also said we wanted to be a major power exporter. We have planned to export minimum 200 megawatts to Burkina Faso alone. And then we're also to extend the export to Mali, Niger. And therefore, we went about reinforcing transmission lines, the 330 kVA, all the way to link into the 225 of Burkina in Paga, so that we could export more. We've not been able to complete that project this government has not been able to complete that project as we speak. And therefore, we are only exporting 100 megawatts. If we're exporting the 200 megawatts, there's also called excess capacity, 34 million left. It's wiped out. So let's stop speaking from positions of ignorance and speak from the position of fact. And so whatever projections they use, the reality is that they were totally wrong.
The finance minister and everybody talking about excess capacity has gotten it wrong.
Absolutely. I'm quoting figures, their own figures. And at the appropriate time, very soon, we will do a whole press conference on this so-called excess capacity that has been overflowed.
But because it seems to be the mainstay of the argument that they are making. And if you read what Boache Jaco writes, whatever Boache Jaco said to the FM station, it seems everything is built on that. And he goes back to refer to the PPA, the PPA committee or whatever that they recommended in 2016.
Have you ever let him or anybody produce a signed copy of that so-called PPA review committee recommendations? Let them produce a signed copy. I challenge them. Yeah, I challenge them. And again, assuming we have to go by the Boache Jaco principle, and his right in law, it's a cabinet decision. He was only implementing a cabinet decision. He's right. Was I not implementing a cabinet decision? Did the power purchase agreement not receive cabinet approval? Did it not receive parliamentary approval? So why Kwabena Donkor? Going by the same principle. You see, we should be taking consistent positions as a nation. It should not be pick and choose. When it's used one faction, the law works. There's collective responsibility. When it does not suit them, it's an individual, Kwabena Donkor.
But the question of when you go back, Honorable, when these decisions were being made at the time, when you needed to deal with the issue of generation, did you at any point in time feel that I have signed too many contracts that I may not need all of this power?
Absolutely not. Remember, how many contracts did we sign? We signed less than 8 contracts. We signed 3-4 emergency power purchase agreements, and these were Ameri, ASA, Car Power, and then this Ghana Power Generation Company. Those were the 4 emergency agreements. Then we signed 3 regular IPPs, LA Power, Jacobson, and Amandi. Those are all the contracts we signed, at least under my leadership. And AXA was for 5 years. AXA should be lapsing now. This government has decided to extend it to 10 years. Car Power was for 10 years. The government has decided to extend it to 20 years. So if we have excess capacity, why are you extending existing agreements that are about to lapse when you claim we have excess capacity?
As far as you know, I know Ameri, APSA, Car Power have all deployed. LA Power, Jacobson, and Amandi, are they all in town?
No, Amandi is about deploying. Jacobson has been deferred by mutual agreement. And that was one option, assuming they actually thought Ghana Power Generating Company power was not immediately needed. That was one other option. We could have deferred same without attracting any cost.
Let me then read to you what because this matter has come up again. I raised a question about whether or not you felt the contract was necessary because Boakye Agyarko also says that quote is that the entry into this transaction was unnecessary. The entry into this transaction was what resulted in financial loss to the states. That word comes up again. That you entered into agreements that caused, on behalf of the state, approved by Parliament, that caused financial loss to the states.
I absolutely disagree. I'm just giving you examples. But the finance minister comes to Parliament to tell Parliament that he's paid so much for excess capacity. Forget about the definition, the wrongful definition now. But within that same argument, he says he pays an average of $234 million a year for excess capacity. ECG, the custodian of all the agreements, says they have to pay about $200 million a year for spending reserve. Let me explain this spending reserve. Let's take a football team. A football team is made up of 11 players. But per FIFA and other regulations, a football team is made up a minimum of 16 players. The 5 on the bench, are they surplus? They are not. Because anytime somebody is injured, anytime there's substitution, somebody has to come in. It is in the same light that in power, we have what we call a spending reserve. And it is that makes the system run smoothly. Without a spending reserve, if a single plant goes down or has a challenge, the whole system is affected. So you need a spending reserve to bring on board to keep the system running smoothly. So that is a requirement of any power system. Do you call that excess?
Well, let me end by then, because this is the threat coming from the Attorney General. Now, Boakye Agyarko says, quote, I, on account of all this, I'm going to write a formal complaint requesting an inquiry by the CID into the conduct of public officers who acted in the manner which resulted in the signing of an agreement which resulted in financial loss to the state. So you are saying you don't fear CID inquiry. It's not the first time, but you are confident you did the right things.
Yes, and I'm solely responsible. It's really my subordinates.
They should hold you responsible if they feel that the agreement is the reason you are the under this position.
Absolutely. I was the minister. Ministers take responsibility. Since the same Attorney General is running away from responsibility and heaping all the blame on the defense on the former Attorney General, I will also say they should leave out my deputy and other officials, going by the same principle.
You feel he's running away from responsibility?
When he was asked in the interview, what kind of advice did the Attorney General give to the minister, he said he wasn't the Attorney General at the time. even though he was Deputy Attorney General. And that they should ask the Attorney General at the time.